Awesome. So welcome everyone to the first All Ops Design Review meeting. And I'm really thankful that you guys and girls showed up. This is amazing because I thought it would be a nice experiment for us to try. And I've scheduled these sessions for now just monthly to try them out because we've been discussing with Justin for quite some time, and we have been also having those discussions in our team, in the Verifying Release UX team, that it would be nice to kind of like collect a little bit more product designers in one call and get a little bit more feedbacks and inputs on the work that we are doing. So this is why we are here. We are actually in the Release and Verify UX team. We are running those design review sessions weekly. It's often a very big success for us because I feel like we are ending up discussing such a things that we would not go necessarily really easily over. Like, for example, somebody would be updating a part of the component or like a part of the functionality, and then we investigate that we already have been doing some work around that, or somebody has a really cool idea. So shortly, it just really helps us to improve the work that we are doing. So collecting a bit more people here, because we are all especially so related in the ops stage, that's amazing. So Justin, maybe I would be actually curious to hear, how do you do the design reviews in your team? But in ours, we usually have like 2 designers, 1 or 2 designers per session, bringing some of the design work that, or research work, something interesting visual to show, or something that we learned, something that we want to discuss or maybe get some ideas, feedback on. And we usually like have those discussions during this session. Does it sound something familiar to what you are doing in ops today?
So we have 3 15-minute slots available, but to be honest with you, not many people sign up to do design reviews in our meetings. So we end up talking a bit more about announcements or any concerns, or feedback from anyone else, stuff like that. So that's why I thought this might be a good idea, because it might force people to actually share their work.
It's exciting. As we started doing it, becomes really, really fun. And yeah, I hope as we're gonna like do those maybe a bit more often, or as we start doing that, we will see what exactly we mean by showing work, and maybe it's going to be easier and easier. But hey, for today's session, I already see 1 subscription, and actually I had even more ideas from my team also, who could show something. Too bad that Dimitri is too late for Dimitri as well, because I thought he had a really interesting thing, but he's in Japan these days, so hey, it's like 11 o'clock p.m. right now, so he's in bed. But yeah, I don't know. Does anyone have any questions about the goals for the sessions, or about how we're going to be doing them before we're going to jump into the actual reviews? Sounds like no. Cool. All right, Ian, then over to you. We're probably going to see some exciting stuff.
Oh, no pressure.
Sorry.
Give me 1 moment. It's got to be really cool now. All right, big energy. We can do this. And we're going to start with the universal question of, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
That is the wrong button.
Kind of tiny though. There you go.
Cool. So what I wanted to share with everyone and get your feedback on is the remote and virtual registries that we're trying to create on the package side. This is a new evolution on a category we already have, and it will provide a lot of features that will make us much more competitive with some of our direct competitors in the package registry realm. At a high level, I'm really looking for that initial temperature test of, does this make sense? Does this match GitLab design standards? We're creating a lot of new features and new UI, so that high level response would be really beneficial. For a quick reminder, the package stage and what we focus on is taking bundled up code and ready to deploy assets and storing them, and then allowing them to be deployed. That could be a code package like an NPM package, or it could be an image. Today's conversation focuses on the dependency proxy. If you notice, it says minimal. Right now, what we handle is, if you ask us for an NPM package, you can enable a feature that if we don't have it in GitLab's registry, we'll go check npmjs.org. That's a really foundational level feature. And what our customers need, especially the larger scale customers, is a much more robust mechanism to do that kind of fetching of packages. So this will hopefully push us up to a whole new level for the dependency proxy. Initiative goals. Business goal is based on the user research. We learned that about most projects for our customers have a 50-50 mix between private custom packages that they've created and public packages that are React package, for example, is one that like is commonly used and is in a lot of code bases. Right now, users and developers and the CI/CD tools have to know which packages are from where, and that creates a really cumbersome experience. From a user goal, we want an easy way to manage, an easy to manage tool that enables safe and secure use of internal and third-party dependencies in a code base. One of the disadvantages of going out to npm.js is that we can't do, say, security scanning. And so we want a way to address that as well. So the simplest way to break down the current user problem is where, oh, where is my package? When you want to pull down a package, whether it's into your local environment or through including another team's package that they've created or going out to the default, it's really confusing for users to know where to go. And it means that their local setup files can be really cumbersome and have a lot of exceptions and if statements, and it kind of doesn't enable users to find things quickly. And most organizations, that's really not what you want your engineers devoting their time to, is finding where the package is. They just want to include it and move forward. A little bit of history. The dependency proxy for GitLab package repositories was actually opened by Dimitri a year ago. It hasn't really been touched. We've been focusing on some other things. And so now it's kind of come back to life. We've been speaking to our customers, especially the larger scale organizations. And GitLab not having a robust solution around this area has been keeping them from really utilizing the GitLab registry offering and making it beneficial for them to use other services and third-party registry managers. Obviously, we want to bring everyone into the one DevOps environment. Last milestone, we conducted problem validation research around this area. Tim did a bunch of interviews and I synthesized the data, and we discovered kind of what the actual problem was and ways that we could solve it. Currently running right now is the investigation issue. We shared the research results in our last Think Big, and we have David, who is a backend engineer, coming in and understanding the technical ramifications of how to build a solution like this. One of the cool parts about working on this initiative is that the technical investigation is happening at the same time I'm doing the design of the interface. And so we've been able to go back and forth, and I can check in a way the work that he's been putting together to make sure it makes sense, and he also has the opposite work. So he can check to make sure the UI is technically feasible, which has been a pretty cool experience. The questions and feedback I'm looking for from everyone. This is a large scale improvement for the package registry, and there's a lot of new technology and terminology and concepts and utilities. I really want to make sure that at a high level it makes sense and kind of resonates with the way that GitLab talks about things. For example, we have a dependency proxy, a hosted registry, a remote registry, and a virtual registry, and all of those combine into creating the solution. So I want to make sure that they resonate with fellow designers and make sure they make sense. And the latter half is at the high level. I'll show a couple of UI screens concepts that we put together, and I want to make sure that they embody the solution as you understand it, as well as good old-fashioned design feedback. Really, and this meme says it, or this GIF says it wonderfully, is this an instrument of communication or an instrument of torture? We don't want to make it harder for our users. We really want to make sure it's easier, but it's a complex problem, and so we have to balance the two things. Some terminology. The dependency proxy is the overarching tool that allows us to fetch dependencies from multiple resources, whether that is a hosted registry, which is one that GitLab has, or a remote registry, which is a third-party tool. I just reviewed this. A hosted registry is currently what the package registry offers. So we have PyPI and Conan and NPM packages. You can create them, deploy them by CI, and store them in the registry, and then you can pull them later. We have remote registries, which are hosted on third parties. And this can be a variety of third parties. It could be the native package manager. So for NPM, this goes to npmjs.org, or this could be on S3 or many other different third-party tools that kind of manage packages. The last term that we're kind of adding or introducing around this is the virtual registry. This is the connection between multiple registries using a single API point. So it could be hosted registries wherever on GitLab, or it could be remote on a third-party tool. And each virtual registry can only contain one package type. So this is the NPM virtual registry or a Maven virtual registry. There's a lot of technical reasons why that has to be the way it is, but the most basic reason is GitLab doesn't really have a command line tool for this. And so you'll type in npm fetch and a package name. So you need to be able to operate in an npm API and a Maven API, etc. I want to take a quick second to pause because I know that was a lot of information. Does everything make reasonable sense so far of what I'm explaining and the problem and terminology that we're using?
Very helpful to see
More
this.
or less.
Cool. I appreciate everyone following along. I know this is kind of tricky. I will admit one of the reasons I wanted to get feedback is also to make sure that I understand and can explain what we're trying to do before we do solution validation next milestone. So you're guinea pigs on top of guinea pigs. Thank you all.
So how did you arrive to this? You mentioned that this is the new proposed terminology. So you mentioned that you're gonna go into the validation of that later, right?
Yes. So we are going to do solution validation next milestone. We're going to use the design to kind of explore all the different technical aspects of this and make sure it makes sense. We're using a combination of terminology our competitors are using and aligning on. There's some deviation, but pretty consistent, as well as the way that we internally have talked about packages and stuff like that and the registries that we use. So it's trying to be a balance of both of them. One of the things that we're going to do during the solution validation is call out, here's this UI, could you explain what hosted means? What does remote mean? And make sure that they're resonating on that base level.
Yeah. And Iain, do you have already any insights or any plans for the UX docs? Like, since there is this, this interest in understanding a bit more of terminology and what this means, have you had a chance to, I don't know, to think about that? I know it's unrelated, but that's my question.
No, for sure. When we implement the solution and start actually rolling it out, one of the things we'd like to do is for the documentation to be ahead of our development a little bit so users can start to see it and understand it. I'm working with Suzanne on putting those MRs together. I think we're going to do the solution validation first and then move on to that next stage, but the documentation update is definitely going to be important, as well as making sure that the documentation, the UI, and the APIs all use the same terminology, which will be a challenge, but will be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I have a similar experience in progressive delivery where the terminology in the API is different from what we express in the UI and how things are documented. So just want to raise the flag there, especially when it's very technical, the topic.
For sure. So far, I've had Suzanne come in on the design issue and constantly asking, hey, does this make sense? Is this in alignment? Does the API match, et cetera? So I'm working hard to make sure everyone is using the same terms moving forward. It's one of the advantages of the investigation issue happening at the same time, is that we don't necessarily just have to use whatever the API uses, and we have the opportunity to all come together to discuss the different terms and how we use them internally. Okay. So the proposed solution is at a very high level, basically what I'm showing you. The developer will want to pull in a package. They will put in the URL for a virtual repository, depending on the package type. So if you want an NPM package, you go to your organization's NPM virtual registry. If you want a PyPI package, you go that route. GitLab will take that as an API call and then search in an ordered list of the different registries until it finds a package matching that type and then returns it for you. So the dependency proxy is the overall idea of all the different ways that you can connect to different packages. And then the virtual registry is the specific API you call and the order of which you look at the different registries. So starting at the high level, this was the initial screen that I put together. So to navigate to here, you would look at your organization's group page or whatever group really, navigate to packages and registries and hit the dependency proxy, and you would be introduced with a screen like this. You have the ability to add a registry or create a virtual registry, and then you have a list of everything that is connected to your dependency proxy. That could be an internal package registry that's hosted on GitLab, either in this group or in a total third-party group. They don't necessarily have to be connected. Registries that you have added your authentication information for third parties, so going out to AWS or a public NPM registry or a private NPM registry to pull it in, or a virtual registry that you have created. And it just kind of lists everything out in the dependency proxy for this group. Any thoughts?
It sounds a little complicated, I would say. I mean, as a possible user, and maybe like, I'm not that technical, so maybe it's necessary to have it so complicated and so all the levels of different tools stuck together. But when I think about packages, to me, it's just like, here's a package, I want to use it. And we can have now like package hosted on GitLab that is accessed via a virtual registry in GitLab that is accessed via a dependency proxy in GitLab. So there are like 3 different levels just to access one package within GitLab. Isn't there any way how we might maybe abstract some of those layers out, or maybe, yeah, so this is my question. Is there a way how we might abstract something out?
For sure. So right now, the simpler solution, or the one that doesn't have as many layers, is that you as an end user know where your package is located. And so you just directly go there to go get it. So you can go to a GitLab's package registry and pull down the package. Or if you know that it is in NPM, you can go directly to NPM. And this solution doesn't stop you from doing that. The idea here is that a DevOps manager could create one API for you and tell you to use this, and you will be able to get that one package no matter where it is. So you as the end user, you as the engineer on a large dev team, don't have to know where each package is. So part of this is that the admin would set this up for you, the engineer. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It is, there's a lot of layers.
Yeah, that's kind of related to my question, Ian, because this is on a group level, right? So managers of users with a specific permission should be able to, access this page. And I was just curious to see how this would cascade or how this would translate on a project level. Would there be like an area, because you're saying that people know where to find this, but where can they see as a DevOps engineer how things are set up? Does that make sense?
I think so.
Or if they even need to do that to know that.
Right. That is kind of the premise we're running on. And I'm going to make a note to make sure to include that during the solution validation, is that if you are already at the project level registry UI, you know your package is there. And so this dependency proxy and virtual registry won't help you directly. We've had a conversation about including information on the project level that says this package registry is part of a larger virtual repository or virtual registry. But that's a really good question. I will definitely ask.
It's kind of, it makes me think of the releases and assets and packages and everything that, yeah, we're doing on release management. And for us, at least, users that have like developer access, they would still see everything reflected in the project level, in the, you know, things are set up in the group, but yeah, they cannot add it just because they need to stay informed. Yeah, but anyways, just a random question there because I think it relates. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, how the package registry in this context would, you know, match the release management scenarios. But I wonder if there will be any overlap in there for our groups and where this could be accessed.
For sure. I think it would be unlikely that a package related to a release, you would pull it through the dependency proxy. This is more enabling users who either have a lot of package registries or third-party registries to pull in from one API point. So one of the advantages is that you can connect a virtual repository to CI, and it will pull in all of your NPM packages and your custom packages and the one you just built into your code base and let it flow through the pipeline with only one access token and one URL. Currently, users have to spell out each package or package type to be able to do that.
I have a question about the CDAs there. So there's a button to create virtual registry, which is clear to me that it creates a virtual registry. And then add registry, does it create a hosted registry in GitLab? So this is something I had to think about. Maybe it would be more obvious to the target user because I literally know nothing about this stuff. So I'm just wrapping my head around how it all works.
That's a really great question. Add registry is a little vague. Maybe something like connect registry. The idea is that the registry already exists. You're not creating any new ones. You are simply adding that already existing registry into the dependency proxy.
Yeah, maybe connect would be a better way to say it.
That makes sense. That's really good feedback. Thank you.
I have UI feedback.
Yes.
It's related to the filter of filter by name, yes, and the button create virtual registry. Yeah, I assume that you're using the pajamas or the components. And I just wanted to highlight that they look very similar. I had to look twice because one is a button and the other one is actually an input field. And I would expect that the filter would be more, yeah, highlighted in a different way. I'm not sure if this is changed or anything, but I would expect it to be like the search and filter, you know, and yeah. So
that's a really good call out. I hadn't noticed, but it does look very buttony when you have that create virtual registry just above it. I will really look into that for sure.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. There was some active discussions. I don't know if anyone has anything else to add.
I do have 2 more screens that I could go through if you all would like, but I am more than happy to take the step back and let someone else present if they have something.
I don't see anything else in the agenda. So yeah, and if you need any feedback there, sure, go ahead.
So this one I would really appreciate feedback on just the overall, does it articulate the idea? So this is a virtual registry. This is the complicated one we talked about, which is one registry with one API URL endpoint that goes out and looks through many different registries to find a package. And it does it in the order that it's displayed. And so if you change the order in the UI, it will change how the API acts. And I'm feeling kind of it's not quite there. So I'd appreciate some feedback on that. So the idea is that this is the virtual registry and it links to the documentation to explain it more, which the users I've talked to have really appreciated that kind of direct connection. You use this URL that you can copy to say npm get this package location, and you put this URL in, and it will search all the different NPM registries. This is the component that is currently in the Epic UI that allows you to reorder issues and add issues inside of an Epic. It doesn't directly result in any change to the API or infrastructure. It's just aesthetic change right now. And so the thing I'm concerned with is that these individual items you can drag and drop to reorder, but I'm concerned that it isn't apparent enough that one, that reordering, that you can reorder it, and two, that it will have an impact of the way the API works. So that's two areas I would really appreciate some feedback or thoughts.
So what you're saying is that the way you reorder it affects the API, right?
Yes. So right now, when you call the API for package X, it will first search in this registry for package X. And then if it can't find it, it will then move to this one to look for package X. And if it can't find it, it will move to this one to search for package X. And if it found the package in this second one, it won't ever check the third one. And so that's why the order is really important. We have users that the use case was, I want to make sure that if we have a cached version or a specific version of a package in our registry, we want them to use that. And only if it's not there, should we check these other registries.
Mm-hmm. And then my question there is that, do you have like an entry state before this view where users can click edit or reorder list and then confirm? Because I see that your buttons are disabled, cancel and update order, but I wonder if this is just how you land on it, or users need to activate this view. Because I imagine that, you know, proactively clicking something to reorder, if it's so sensitive, like reordering these items, yeah, could have a, you know, an action button there to reorder and then save it. But anyway.
That's a really good call. I am still working through the actual create a new virtual registry page. My idea was that the add registry functionality would be similar to the issues, add issues to Epic, where you can search for the issue name, or in this case, search the registry name, and it pops up and you can check multiple ones. And then when you hit confirm, it adds them to the list, and then you can reorder them there. I do like the idea of being explicit with an action button that says like reorder registries or something like that, that just, instead of trying to do it, I am trying to do it the other way, where if you move the order at all, the buttons become available and you can update it. But I think your suggestion would work better now that I'm reviewing it, especially because it does impact the API action directly.
Yeah, exactly that. Because when you reorder, for example, an issue, it doesn't really change anything. For example, in the priority order where something's gonna be merged, I don't know, or like anything in your roadmap. So
yeah, that was exactly my concern. Was that it doesn't, you can reorder them, but like it doesn't impact anything apart from the order it's displayed in, and that's different than it is here. But I didn't want to create a whole new component just for this either, if I could avoid it. So I'm trying to find a nice middle ground.
I wonder if it'd be a different component or just a state within this, I don't know what they call this component or this this UI view. But yeah, this could be useful, for example, when you're creating a release, creating or editing a release and you're adding assets, for example, or you adding links, etc. It might be in the future because you want to have drag and drop to upload things, but might be a use case where users want to reorder or just change some things related to the package registry. So
yeah, I agree here. Like actually, Iain, maybe something like from the side feedback, like I wouldn't read the, like I'm from one of those people who don't really read text, and actually only like later I noticed that you had tried to describe changing the order of the list, like what effect this will have. So, and for me, like it was like I was actually just seeing your screen. I was wondering why cancel and update order buttons were disabled, and it wouldn't come to my mind to try to move these things around. to get the buttons enabled. But yeah, maybe that's, you know, just from looking from a static image. I'm missing some kind of like a visual clue. Usually those elements like have a little bit of like of a drag icon or something like that, or three dots or something that they indicate that these components are movable. That's to the like to the communication of the items are draggable, but not to the order is important of the items. But I would be missing like some visual clue that, hey, you can actually move those items. Sounds like we don't have the component for that, but maybe that's time also to think of something like that.
I think we used to have like this, I'm not sure if it's in a different component, but we have these indicators like a kind of like a hamburger menu-ish on the left where you could see that you can reorder an item. I don't think it's implemented like across this list card components, but I've seen somewhere.
I see. Yeah, this is would be exactly like what I mean. Sometimes they add three dots, sometimes it's a little hamburger, and sometimes it's like this all 90s, like I think it's like this cross with a little like, I don't know what. It's like this handle that you had in the Windows UI elements, but something like that.
That's so true.
Do we ever number these lists? Like, is there anything on other UI areas that actually will number something to sort of push the concept that an order matters?
I have not seen it. This design is really trying to make sure I'm using components that are already existing. But adding the number may reinforce the idea that the order you put them in has an impact on how it will act, for sure.
Yeah, like I'm thinking even indent each of the items, the rows, and then put a number outside of the draggable object.
It could also be
So
something that when you hit the button that says reorder list, they shift over the hamburger or dots that Nadia described show up, and then the numbers also like each individual card shrinks a little from the left and the number shows up to like really hammer home you are dictating an order and it will have an impact, and then the buttons at the bottom show up.
There could also be a way to show it visually, like to visually show a path from the first item to the last item. I'm not
so kind
sure.
of like a timeline where you'd have a dot and then a line that goes down to the next dot, down to the next dot. So
sort of a timeline, also maybe showing like a direction. I don't know, I'm just thinking about any additional clues that we could give to the user, because numbers, for example, for me, it probably wouldn't be the best way. But maybe it's also different from the user to user, you know, different people process information differently. Like Nadia said that she doesn't read text. To me, the numbers, like, for me, visually, I think it would be more helpful.
Yeah, especially since, oops, sorry, go ahead.
What am I thinking? It's so late in the day. Okay. It could also be reminiscent of the pipeline view where you see all the different jobs and they're kind of connected by that line. We could take some of that UI language and apply it here as well. Because in theory is the same idea of this is the order of operations, which is what we want to convey.
That's what I was going to say. Since it's like they're all dependent and there is a certain flow, right? Maybe, yeah, try something similar to the pipeline view. I think that could look cool as well.
Thank you all. That was exactly the feedback I needed. Always love getting that.
There was a third one, right? We had a sneak peek when you switched the screens.
Oh, yes. If nobody has any feedback on this one, my question here is, the form is really wide. And I'm trying to do it following pajamas, and I can't tell if our forms are just really wide or if they're supposed to be centered and shorter, or if I'm missing something. But there's a lot of distance. Like, that's a big form. So I was just wondering if anyone could point me in the direction of a nicer, less wide. For the auth token, it makes sense, but technically by the pajamas guidelines, if I understand it right, that package type dropdown that I have up here in the top right should actually be the full width, and the words are like 8 characters long at the most. So that's kind of a ridiculous dropdown. And I'm trying to avoid that.
We have the page containers layout on Figma. Those are not implemented yet. So the thing is that I'm not sure what configuration you have, but you can change in the settings how you want to see the pages, right? The GitLab layout. You can have like full width, or you have, I don't know, 8, 12 columns within the page container. I hate working with forms because they always look like this. And it's very difficult because pajamas, we say that the form should be inline, like inline block. So for example, package type would be under registry name, but it makes the page so uncomfortable. And I would say that if I were designing this, I would just put it in, full width, or at least, leave package type, just drop it and leave as is, because this is a bigger problem that we should fix on a higher level. Forms are a pain.
But question here, if you're going to be viewing it on like large wide screen, like I have left at my other house, then the package type thing could end up fully on right, and maybe I would not even notice that. Will it like, how do you say, not squeeze, but will it become really wide, or it will keep this width and then like leave the wide screen there?
That's a great question. I use the 990 pixel width. That is the smallest width in pajamas. And so this is as wide as it would get. So if you had the giant screen, the package, it would be in the center.
Okay. So it won't like fit it will not like fluidly adapt to the screen width.
Nope.
Well, the user has options. They can choose liquid in their global settings. I believe it's where it's located. They could choose the 990, or they can choose liquid, which means it will stretch.
And that's a setting that we have in GitLab.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why we leave everything fluid, and that's why it looks like, a bit boring, because if you force a layout there, it's going to break in other views. And we also have a lot of legacy forms where you have like 2 columns layout, right? Like in settings, you have text on the left and then forms on the right, and it's a bit, it's a catch-22 working with forms, to be honest.
I learned something today about the settings. Okay. Yeah, so maybe then, Ian, you may think like if somebody will take the fluid one, then the package type, I can imagine that that's pretty important one, and or maybe giving it like, I don't know, maybe an icon there or whatever other options, like to be a bit more visual, or maybe just moving it below. Yeah, and then you will have to pick functionality over like ugliness of another really, really wide screen. But hey, like I always go for functionality if you have that choice.
Makes sense. Cool. Thank you all very much for that feedback. I don't have anything else to share. But again, thank you. I really appreciate all your feedback, and our users will too.
Thanks a lot for being the first and brave to showcase work. I love watching these kind of things. It's really nice to look at something visual and like, pretend that you're a designer. I love that.
Also, I don't think that this is one format that you can certainly take, which is sort of showcasey, but you can also simplify it and just show mock-ups that you can talk through. It doesn't have to be this formal. Ian had a lot of questions that he wanted to get answered, so it makes sense that he, did it in this way. But I just don't want anyone to sort of get scared and say, oh, now I have to create another presentation for another meeting. It doesn't have to be like that.
Super important.
Secretly, this presentation is also the version 1 of what will be in the showcase next week, so I cheated a little.
I kind of figured as much, and it's total. That makes perfect sense. So you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You're testing 2 things.
I'm adding here to the docs, to the notes, feedback section for today. And my thought is that since this is it's a monthly, right, call.
Yeah.
I think it would be nice, the same thing we do for the CI/CD, for the verify release Nadia, and as to maybe give a chance for more people to present, and kind of, at least two presenters a week, or at least 2 topics. Because Ian, I loved it. I didn't have anything to present, but I think it will be nice given we are, more designers.
Well, that's what it was supposed to be, but only Ian's the only one that signed up.
Yeah.
Oh,
I wanted to sneakily put Hayana. I know that she had a nice topic to bring up, and I'm sure it would spin up some interesting discussions, but maybe next time. But I agree with you, yeah, Hayana. It's always like, it's nice when it's a bit, how do you say, diverse. I don't know, but yeah, I love this one. This was extremely visual and extremely uniform.
because sometimes we have, even when we have like the two topics, it becomes like very complex, or that we just need to provide a lot of context when the topics are very technical. So maybe just something to keep in mind for the future.
Definitely. Cool. If no one else has anything to add, anything for the feedback or anything else, appreciate the 5 of us staying. I hope we can continue having these sessions, and hopefully we're gonna have more attendees, because I think it was cool. Thanks, Iain, for again being the first to showcase with the work. I'm gonna pause the recording.
Thanks for organizing this. It was very helpful. It's always cool to learn what others are up to. Next time I'll have to share some of the stuff I'm working on around metrics dashboards. We're working on a lot of improvements. So I'll be getting your feedback.
Then I'm going to schedule one-on-one with you, Nadia, because that was going to be my next topic on analytics and metrics for release management. So maybe we can talk before that.
Yeah, totally. Let's do that.
Nice. Okay, mission accomplished for today. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good evening, rest of the day, or whatever, and talk soon.
Bye.